G'day guys, Jakko here. Just out in the water today having a bit of a fish. Thought I'd sit down and do a bit of a talk about my Garmin Livescope setup and my thoughts and opinions on it so far. So I've had it on the boat now for 4 or 5 months. Used it a fair bit, and before then I've always been around it with my mates. Everyone's got it on their boat, so I've probably been exposed to the Livescope for 12 to 18 months in total. So I thought I'd sit down and do a video of what I found so far, positives, negatives, and yeah, maybe help some of you guys out that might be on the fence about getting into it and whatnot. Anyway, we'll jump straight into it and let you know what I've got. So at the wheel I've got a Garmin Echomap 9 UHD, so that's a 9-inch screen. So I've got that just at the back. I used to have a Lowrance HDS 7 there, Gen 3. Just upgraded that to the 9 purely so I've got a bigger screen for navigating at night with the GPS, and just also a little bit better side scan on it. And the other thing with having a Garmin at the back and also having a Garmin at the front is I can link them together, so pretty handy thing. If you are looking to get in the Livescope, you definitely don't need to get one at the back. You can use whatever down the back, or you don't even need a standard down the back. But I just thought if I'm going to spend the money and outlay it, I may as well get both screens, let them talk together, and also get the benefits of having a better GPS system and mapping, and also the side scan and down scan of the Garmin. So got that at the back, and then up the front that I run my Livescope off, I've got a Echomap 125 SV, so Echomap Ultra 125 SV. So it's a 12-inch screen. And it's great. I've loved it. I haven't really used it for anything but the Livescope since I've got it. I don't really find any need to use it for traditional sonar, down scan, side scan. If you've got the Livescope basically gives you all the feedback you need, and it's just better than any of those other sonar options. So first question I might get is, why did you get the Echomap 125 over going the 84 series? So the 84 series in Garmin is their top of the line series, and the Echomap's one under. Now, firstly the biggest thing is the price. The 84 series is a fair bit more expensive, and I just don't see the benefit there in spending that extra money for the Livescope. Now, if I was going deep sea fishing or out in the salt and I was really using down scan and sonar and that type of thing a lot more, then you'll definitely see the benefits of going to an 84 series. But purely using my setup for Livescope, there is bugger all difference between the 84 series and the Echomaps in terms of Livescope. So if we look at it in the way that I've got that 12-inch screen, and I could, for the money I spent on that 12-inch screen in the Echomap, I could have got an 8410, which is a 10-inch screen, for the same price. Now, I think that money's a lot more beneficial in putting it into an extra 2 inches on the screen than having the better definition in your side scan, down scan, and bugger all on the Livescope. So my recommendation is, if you are going to get into it and you're purely going to use one for Livescope, look at the Echomaps before going to the 8412s, because I think you're just going to spend an extra $1,000, $2,000 on a sounder that you're really not going to see any benefits in spending that extra money compared to getting an Echomap. So that's the first thing. Now onto my pole. So the pole is a Rob Payne engineering pole. Got all this through Outback Angler in Dubbo. I can't recommend them guys enough. If you are looking to get into it, definitely give Luke or Aaron a call there at Dubbo, or go in and see them. You don't have to go and see them, you can just give them a call and they'll help you out. They've been doing the Livescope, the Garmin stuff for years now, before it really took off, and they know it to a T. They both fish with it and they know what they're doing. So if you are looking to get into it, I can't recommend them enough, because they'll help you set it up and they know what they're doing. They're not like some kid at a chain store that doesn't know what a spool of 10-pound fluoro is. They know how to use this stuff. So go, if you are looking to get into it, give them a ring. Anyway, Rob Payne engineering pole. So they're not cheap, up around that $500-600 mark from memory, but they are legit. They're schmick poles and do a great job. I've been around a fair few different poles and some dodgy PVC jobs. I've seen them all, and this is the bee's knees in my opinion. Josh Kopp also does make some poles these days, so if you are looking to something to compare it to, have a look at Copper's poles. But from what I've seen, bee's knees, Rob Payne Engineering, out back in Dubbo. So all it is, just got the pole there, big ass ram mount on it, and it's just so easy. Undo the ram mount, flip it over, drop it in the piss, turn it around. I've just got a bit of one of those pull horse things just there, just to protect it against my mounts up here from rubbing that paint off, but you don't need to do that. Pretty simple. Got the boys, Mark and Rob, I'm pretty useless, so they hooked it all up for me. Got the battery underneath me, and also got the Garmin, the Livescope black box under there as well, so that's all rigged up. It's all pretty clean. Now that pole is also, it's the perfect height for me, so I'm about 6 foot, and with that Livescope just in the water, just perfect. The handle at the top of it is just sits at your side. And one thing you don't want to do is you don't have a pole that's either too low, definitely not too low, because you're going to be down there all the time crouching down, you're going to get a sore back within the hour, or too high. Obviously if it's too high, you can just drop the transducer itself, so it suits you right there. So basically you want it right by your side, and it's just easy, it's just natural. You don't want, the biggest thing is don't get a pole, especially if you're 6'5", 6'6", this pole might not be for you. You might need to get a bigger pole or put a bit of an extension onto one of these Rob Payne poles. My bracket, my mounting bracket for my 12-inch Garmin up the front is a Marine Dynamics. Basically, you don't need to have it. I could have put that straight onto the hull of the boat, but you want to get that sounder a little bit elevated. The closer the screen is to your eyes, the better you're going to be able to interpret the sounder. So get it up a little bit. That only brings it up about 100, 150 mil, that Marine Dynamics mount, but it's better than not having it. So if you are looking to get a mounting bracket for your screen, Marine Dynamics, $100 for one of them, cheap as, just go on the website and I'll send it out. The Skiers boys, if you know the Skiers boys, I think Mitch is also making some mounts, just making them up himself, and I haven't seen them yet, but they look pretty smick, and I think they might be a bit high, so that's another option if you're looking to get some mounts. I've seen guys run their Livescope on poles yay long and it's sitting at their face, they can eat off it. I don't know about that, it looks a bit how you're going. It would be effective, I guess, because it's right at your eye line, but you want it to be practical and like stow on that every time you go on different spots and stuff. It'd just be annoying, I reckon. So having that sounder there like that, and just elevated that amount with a 12-inch screen, it's perfect. Now if you're going to go a 10-inch screen, a 9-inch screen, if you're trying to save on, if you don't have the funds or trying to save a bit of money, you probably want to elevate it more. So the smaller the screen, the more you're going to want to elevate it, because there's nothing worse than having a little screen down there and you can't read it. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend. Now if you can afford it, get the biggest screen. That's my biggest recommendation. The 12-inch screen is so much better than the 10-inch screen with the Livescope, so, and the 10 is so much better than 9, so get what you can afford, and if you can get a 12 in the Echomap, definitely get the 12. Right, that's pretty much my setup. Last thing actually, so I said at the start, I've got a network cable between my 9 at the back and my 12 at the front, which is really handy. So if I've got someone fishing down the back, I can actually put Livescope, it'll just show the picture from the 12 at the front, the Livescope picture, so the person down the back can actually watch what's going on. They don't have any control obviously over the pole and what they're looking at, where it's pointing, but they can look at the screen and know what's going on. So it's a handy thing. It's crazy times and everyone's getting into it. I know some boats are actually putting dual Livescope systems on their boat at the moment, so the person down the back has got their own pole and their own screen, so they can Livescope as well as the bloke at the front, and they're not missing out. So pretty crazy, but that's the way it's going at the moment. Anyway, I'll jump in and just have a bit of yarn about my opinions and thoughts on the Livescope so far. I'll start by saying it blows your mind. The first time you'll see it, if you haven't seen it before, it will blow your mind what it actually shows you. Fish swimming around in real life. It's pretty crazy, and you know, the first time I seen it, I couldn't believe it, and thought, how effective is this going to be, and how good is that going to how much better is that going to make my fishing and putting fish in the boat? But as good as it looks, it definitely doesn't put fish in your boat. So if you're looking to get a quick fix and just something that's just going to put fish in the boat, the Livescope's not going to do it. A lot of people think that they need Livescope these days to compete, or just go out and catch fish, but that's definitely not the case. It is a very, very effective tool, but it certainly won't put the fish in the boat for you. So that's one thing to note. So the biggest thing that I found with it is the fish behaviour and how the fish react to a lure. So you can see fish swimming around, you can find fish quite easily if you're in the right area. You need to get to the right area, and if you're in an area with fish, you will find the fish on the Livescope. The trick is getting those fish to eat. That's the hardest thing that I've found so far, and I'm still trying to master it. So far this cod season, I've had a struggle. I was definitely catching more fish last season without the Livescope, but I think that's more to do with the season and just how the lake's fishing at the moment. It's just not firing like it was last year, so it's a little bit different. I wouldn't put down the Livescope, but I think I'm a lot more benefited by having the Livescope on board. I'm learning so much every time I go out on the water from having that Livescope and seeing what the fish are doing, seeing how the fish are reacting to my lures, and just putting it all up here, and it's just all starting to come together. It hasn't come together yet. I've caught some good cod on the Livescope so far, but I'm definitely not banging them. I've also used it on the yellow belly, had some pretty good sessions on the yellow belly, and it's great fun. You are glued to the screen, but it is good and it is effective. Now, there's different ways you can go about fishing with the Livescope. Some people might want to just put it on their boat and not pay heaps of attention to it, have it there and fish normally. Whereas the opposite end of that is some other people will get it and they will not have a cast until they see a fish. So the guys that are really smashing it are sort of doing that. They know how to use the technology. They're really good with it, and they're just finding fish and getting those fish to eat when they find the fish. So they might only have 50 casts a session compared to the average bloke that's having 500 casts a session, but every one of those casts is going to be at a fish's head. So yeah, the guys that are killing it with this technology have used it for a while and they know how to use it. It's not something that you're going to get and you're just going to start catching fish straight away. You'll see fish, you're not going to catch them. The trick is going to be still spending, it's the biggest thing is time on the water, learning how to use the technology and learning how to get the fish to eat a lure while looking at the sounder. So you'll be able to find them, but getting them to eat is a whole nother story. Back to what I was saying about someone having 50 casts compared to someone having 500 casts. So when I first got it, I was of the opinion that I didn't want to let it change the way I fished. I still wanted to go out there, grind it out, heaps of casts, and just pay attention to it, spin it around every couple of minutes and see if there's a fish nearby, but try and just focus on what I've done for the last 10-15 years Murray cod fishing, and that's just out there grinding away, fishing spots that I know or I'm confident in, and using that as a tool just to have a look around, see if there is fish in the area, but not being glued to the screen. And yeah, that didn't last too long. It's very hard to blind cast and just continually blind cast without looking at that screen. And often if I do go start blind casting, I'll spin the pole to pick up my lure halfway back into the retrieve, and if there's no fish around it, then I just burn it back in, because you just know, well, you just lose confidence if you can't see a fish around there. There could be a fish on the bottom, or there could be a fish 10 metres away that you can't see that could have steamrolled it, but yeah, you lose a lot of confidence and you just rip it back in. So now the way I'm going about it is I pretty much am glued to that screen and going around finding fish, casting the fish. As I said, I haven't nailed it yet. I can find the fish really well, but getting them deep is a whole different thing, as I said. Other things that I found it super effective for is finding structure. So structure like submerged timber is just unreal with it. You can just spin it around. You can have it on 30 metres distance, spin it around and just find submerged timber all around you. and then you can literally see a tree 17 metres away. You can cast your lure, bang on the tree, let it fall. You can see your lure going down the side of the tree and reel it back at the depth you want. You can see what depth your lure's been retrieved at and everything. So even though you might not be able to see a fish on that tree, because they do blend in quite well, you still can fish that submerged timber so effectively. Like before this type of stuff, side scan and that, you could pick up these submerged trees, but it's nothing like what it is with the Livescope. You can actually see where it is 20 metres away, bang a cast, watch that lure fall down the side of the tree and bring it back at whatever depth you want. It's killer. I've caught some good fish already by doing that, not actually seeing the fish on the timber because they do blend in well, but actually just casting at a submerged tree that I wouldn't have even known was there if I didn't have it. Casting at it and just bringing it across the top of a submerged tree and just watching a cod just come straight up and grab it. It's pretty cool stuff. So that structure, weed beds, if you're fishing a weed bed, it's hard to judge where the weed, there's not surface weed, it's always hard. Like you'll get the feel for it as you're going down the weed bed where you need to land your cast. But with the Livescope, you can dead set see where that weed edge finishes, and you can just say, righto, bang, 24 metres away, that's the weed edge, land your lure there, and you can actually see your lure going down the edge of the weed and start bringing it in. It just makes everything so much easier when it comes to fishing structure in that sense. So that's the benefits. Negatives. It changes the way you fish. Now, I'll use this as an example from last season when I was fishing. I was on a bit of a roll, had a really good run, was banging heaps of good cod. I think I went multiple trips where I was catching good fish, and I was on this spot, on this weed bed, where I was super confident, and I knew on first light I was going to get a hit. Went out with Cuz, and Cuz had only fished with me once, I think, prior, and it was a new spot that he hadn't fished, so he obviously didn't have the confidence that I had because he didn't have the experience of fishing there. We were out in his boat for the first time, and he had the Livescope, so I wasn't using the Livescope, and I was just out there and I just worked it out, had the feel for it, knew exactly what I was doing, and it was just working. Went out on his boat with the Livescope, out there just before dawn. On the Livescope we saw a couple of fish, but nothing too major, and Cuz wanted to leave. He's like, nah, there's not enough here, I'm not seeing enough fish on the Livescope, I think we've got to go. I was like, nah, you need to trust me, on first light they'll come up on this weed and the bait will start boiling and they'll go bananas. We stuck it out. There wasn't much on the Livescope that we saw because the fish were in the weed, and when they're in the weed they're very hard to pick up. Car's got a 99 and a smaller one in that morning session, so if we went with his feeling and left because we couldn't see anything on the Livescope, we wouldn't have caught those fish. We could have went to another spot and caught fish, but the fact that I knew from fishing there and build up that knowledge of that spot and said they'll come on, that's why we caught those fish. So you lose that side of it because you're so focused on the screen, and you will fish completely differently. So I've already found it this season where if I can't see a fish on the screen, I'm just so less confident, whereas if I didn't have the Livescope, I'd just be fishing normally and be confident in fishing the spot that I'm in. But the fact that I can't see a fish on the screen means I don't have the confidence. So it's a really hard one to get your head around. There is a lot of noise around the Livescope, so some people love it, and there's people out there that don't like it and don't like what it's about. But the way that I look at it is it's technology, it's here, it's not going anywhere. In 3, 4, 5 years, Livescope or live sight or live imaging, whatever you want to call it, when all the brands start getting into it, it's going to be no different to what side scan was when it came out 5-10 years ago. Side scan was like, wow, bee's knees, everyone's got to have side scan. It was a game changer, and now this live scope stuff is no different. So down the track, everyone, 80-90% of boats are going to have this stuff on, this technology on their craft. So although I definitely get where people are coming from, saying it's not fishing anymore and it's a computer game, whatever. But some of those guys might just need to get out on a boat with it and see it's not easy. You're fishing differently, but it's definitely not easy. And in the grand scheme of things, I think it will make fishing tougher on a whole, especially for Murray cod, because fish, as more and more people get this technology on their boat, fish are going to have lures coming past their noses a whole lot more, because people are finding fish, putting lures on their nose. So these fish are going to get programmed. They're going to learn a lot quicker and become a lot smarter about what a lure is and what a bait fish is. What's the difference between a lure and a bait fish? Because before this stuff, these fish were not, you were just blind casting a lot of the time. Blind cast, blind cast, blind cast, and every so often your lure would happen to go past the cod's face. Not with this stuff. And the more people that get it, the more lures these fish are going to see, and they're going to get a lot more smarter. So it's going to make fishing tougher as a whole, I reckon, going into the future. Right now, it shouldn't be any different. It should actually be easier for us because we can find the fish. But I think the guys that stay ahead of the game and are trying new things like being stealthy, new lures, not doing the same thing that everyone's doing, are going to be the people that continue to catch fish, because when everyone's got this technology, everyone's going to be in the same boat, and the fish aren't just going to keep jumping in. They're going to get smarter and they're going to get tougher to catch. So one of the things with this technology is you got to think outside the box and stay on top of the game and stay ahead of the pack if you want to keep catching quality Murray cod. And that's my goal. So always thinking outside the box and thinking where I can excel and get better with the Murray cod fishing, because it's definitely not an easy thing, and it's definitely not going to get any easier. Anyway guys, I might wrap it up there. They're just a few opinions of the Livescope since I've had it. I can't recommend it enough. I might not have said that yet. I do recommend it, although there is some negatives to it, and it might change your mindset and your confidence around fishing certain areas or fishing for certain fish. But the feedback that it gives you, just with the fish behaviour, the structure that it brings to life, and you can see in fish so much easier, it is a game-changing technology. And I think the sooner people get into it, probably the better, because as I said, I feel like this type of technology is just going to be the norm a couple of years down the track, and every boat's going to have it. So you may as well get into it now if you're into Murray cod fishing or yellow belly fishing, barramundi fishing, that type of thing. I don't know how effective it's going to be in the salt water. I haven't taken it down to the salt water yet. There might be a market there for it. I don't know. But if you're a cod fisho, a yellow belly fisho, barra fisho, it's a game changer, and you definitely should check it out. And as I said, Outback Angler in Dubbo, Lukey, Aaron, if you do want to get a price or find out anything about the Garmin stuff, give them a ring and they can help you out. They helped me out setting my boat up and got me all sorted, so definitely can't recommend them enough. Anyway guys, that's a bit of a wrap. If you've got any questions about anything to do with my Livescope setup or my opinions on anything else, just drop a question down below and I'll try and get back to you as quick as possible. Thanks for watching.